Welcome to the EPIC Plus Hazardous Materials section.
The top hazardous materials violations in the EPIC program are: the hazardous materials business plan is incomplete and/or has not been amended to reflect changes done at the business. The annual carcinogen reproductive toxin reporting list has not been submitted to the Hazardous Materials Division. The hazardous materials business plan has an inadequate site map. The hazardous materials business plan is not available for review. And last but not least, the hazardous materials business plan inventory is incomplete and/or not amended.
If you look closely, you will see that 4 out of the 5 hazardous materials violations directly involve the hazardous materials business plan, HMBP. So before we go any further, let's review business plan basics and introduce a new way to submit your HMBP electronically through the California Environmental Reporting System. Beginning January 1st of 2013, the hazardous materials business plan and other CUPA program reporting elements are now mandated by Assembly Bill 2286 to be submitted online through the California Environmental Reporting System, or CERS. The information previously submitted on paper forms is the same. The major difference is that they must now be submitted electronically through each business's CERS account. We will go over some of the CERS basics in this training, but for further information, including instructional videos, you can visit our CERS information page, listed here. Let's review the basics on how the new online reporting system works. Much like online banking, each person creates their own account in CERS and then links the facilities that they will be reporting for to their account by requesting access to their business through the CERS business portal. Once linked, CERS determines which forms you will need to submit and pulls them into your CERS submittal page to be completed and submitted online. In CERS, the hazardous materials business plan is spread across 3 separate sections called submittal elements. The facility information element contains your business owner-operator identification form, which contains all of the emergency contact information as well as a certification statement. This first element must be included every time you submit any changes in CERS. The hazardous materials inventory element contains both the hazardous materials and waste inventory as well as the business site map, which means they must be submitted together each time there is an update to your inventory or site map. You can see here the site map is a document that you must upload, while the inventory is a series of online fields based on the old paper forms. The emergency response and training plans element allows you to upload your emergency response plan as well as your employee training plans. Again, these two are submitted together. Business owner operator identification page often gets overlooked by businesses. However, this page is very important as it provides the current emergency contact information. The Department of Environmental Health found this information useful during the firestorms. It was very frustrating when the information was outdated. Remember, if the information changes and/or if any of the portions of your hazardous materials business plan requires amending, you must log into your CERS account, make the necessary updates, and resubmit it through CERS. CERS requires that the facility information element, which includes this form, be included in every submittal. So it's good practice to look it over for outdated contacts each time you need to submit updates or recertify your hazardous materials business plan in CERS.
All Chapter 6.95 of the California Health and Safety Code requires reporting of hazardous materials that are handled above certain quantities. According to the Health and Safety Code, a business must report 55 gallons of a hazardous liquid, 500 pounds of a hazardous solid substance, and 200 cubic feet of a compressed gas. Plus, a business must also report extremely hazardous substances in threshold planning quantities and also compressed gases that have a threshold limit value, or TLV, of 10 parts per million or less. Here are a few listed that are commonly observed at biotech facilities. Businesses have at times forgotten to report water treatment chemicals, for example, a 55-gallon drum of sodium hydroxide or of an acid. Glass washing detergents. Remember, detergents can be concentrated and hazardous due to its basic pH. These have been observed in vivarium cage washing areas, and the fuel used in emergency generators, the size of the tank is what needs to be reported.
Within 30 days of any of the following changes, a business must log into SERS, make the appropriate updates, and submit the changes electronically in SERS. These changes are 100% or greater increase in the quantity of a previously disclosed material, any handling of a previously undisclosed material, removing an item from the previously disclosed inventory, or any changes in the storage, location, or use of a hazardous material which could affect emergency response. Your chemical inventory, including each hazardous material stored in reportable quantities, as well as your waste streams, is now entered and managed in SERS. Again, the information entered online is the same as the fields on the paper form. Businesses can also take advantage of tools like the SERS Chemical Library, which will help fill in some of the physical properties and hazard information for common materials, or the Upload Inventory tool, which can offer an alternative to entering each chemical individually for sites with a large inventory.
Sitemap is another component of the Hazardous Materials Business Plan. The Hazardous Materials Division personnel collects and verifies the site map and then provides emergency first responders copies. First responders use the information provided on the map to adequately respond to an emergency, such as the hazardous substance releases, bulging containers, and so on.
The requirements for creating your sitemap also have not changed, but now they must be scanned into a PDF and uploaded into SERS to be submitted electronically along with your chemical inventory.
Here are the basics for all businesses when completing their sitemap. Use 8.5 by 11-inch paper. Some sites may have multiple pages. Only the footprint of the building and perhaps a few main walls need to be shown. Provide detail only for buildings and rooms with hazardous substances, not admin buildings. Use black ink on white paper only. Site maps are scanned and photocopied. Color on the originals do not make good copies and are difficult to read. Remember to completely fill in the top portion with facility name, address, zip code, permit number, and Thomas Brothers map page and coordinates. All spaces on the top should be filled out. Use only these standardized symbols to mark the location of hazardous substances in reportable quantities. These are used by all emergency responders in San Diego County, and they are familiar with what these symbols represent. A map legend or key showing the accepted sitemap symbols is not necessary on the sitemap. Avoid clutter. Only use the map symbols that are listed in the Hazardous Materials Business Plan. These are used and understood by all emergency responders. Do not use your own. There will be no time to learn your symbols when responding to an emergency. Confused? Well, let's take a look at a few sample sitemaps. This sample sitemap has clearly used the standard symbols to mark the location for water, electric, and gas shutoffs. The location of the fire hydrant is symbolized, plus the location of the staging area where all employees can be accounted for in case of a building evacuation. The storm drain and sewer drains are also clearly marked. FH in the circle depicts a flammable hazardous waste over 55 gallons, a reportable quantity, and the SR in a diamond symbolizes a hazardous material with a sudden release hazard, most likely a compressed gas. The north symbol, N in a circle, must have an arrow pointing to the north direction. The nearest cross street needs to be also identified. on the map for quick and easy location of the facility. The symbols only need to be used on the map. The words are used for demonstration in this training only. This is a sample site map from a business with multiple buildings. The first page is a map of the entire business complex. Subsequent pages on this facility site map can show a large, more detailed map of each building. This is page 3 of the site maps showing specifically Building D. Note all the standard symbols used. This sample site map illustrates a site with multiple floors. In this case, each site map page can represent the particular floor for the facility and the hazardous substances in reportable quantities stored on this floor are noted on the site map page. A common situation with biotech facilities are labs with below reportable quantities of hazardous substances scattered throughout. But as a sum, the hazardous substances reach reportable quantities. So how can this situation be shown on the site map without cluttering the map with multiple hazard symbols? This sample site map did just that by clearly marking each laboratory space and noting that small quantities of hazardous substances are located in each of these labs. Businesses that handle hazardous materials and generate hazardous waste have a responsibility to ensure that those materials and wastes are handled properly to prevent accidental spills and releases into the environment. Your hazardous materials business plan must include the following emergency response procedures for a release or threatened release of hazardous materials. Mitigation, prevention, or abatement of hazards to persons, property, or the environment. Procedures and equipment for minimizing the potential damage. Immediate notification of local emergency response, the Hazardous Materials Division and California Office of Emergency Services, and persons within your facility who respond to incidents, and immediate notification and evacuation of your facility. As a generator of hazardous waste and a handler of hazardous materials, you have an obligation to provide a certain level of training to your employees. A personal training program shall be designed to ensure that employees are able to respond effectively to emergencies. Your training program, at a minimum, must include methods for safe handling of hazardous substances, procedures for coordination with local emergency response organizations, use of emergency response equipment and supplies, emergency response procedures for a release or threatened release of hazardous materials.
Just like the site map, the emergency response plan and employee training description should be uploaded into SERS and submitted electronically. For the employee training description, you can visit the San Diego County Forms page if you need a sample or blank training plan template to follow. For emergency response or contingency plans, you might find it useful to use the template provided within SERS, which could be filled out electronically, saved, and uploaded here to satisfy this requirement. Hazardous Materials Business Plan must be certified annually, whether it needs changes or not. A business may find that submitting when they get their permit bill works, or when they have scheduled to certify their annual carcinogen list. Whatever works, as long as it is submitted annually. This annual requirement is not tied to the calendar year, so if you submit your plan today, the next certification is due a year from today and not December 31st of next year. This is a copy of the Hazardous Materials Business Plan Certification section in SERS, found near the bottom of the Owner-Operator Identification page. Make sure that you review this section and it has a current date to let us know that you're recertifying your HMBP. It would also be good practice to include a comment letting us know if you're recertifying without changes, which would help us process your submittal. For further guidance on the documents that must be uploaded into SERS, Form templates and samples may be found on the Forms page of the County of San Diego's website, which can be found using the link listed here.
So moving on to the hazardous materials violations. Violation number 1 is the hazardous material business plan not being complete and or not amended to reflect changes. Well, when could this be cited? It could be cited if you were missing a section or component of your business plan, or if the business plan is complete but the facility is not being depicted accurately due to changes. Examples include the employee training description not being located at all during an inspection, or the emergency contacts being outdated on the emergency response plan even though it's available for review. Basically, this is a catch-all violation. Any discrepancy or multiple discrepancies within any component of the business plan can be cited under this violation.
The second hazardous materials violation in the EPIC Plus Top 10 is that the annual carcinogen reproductive toxin list has not been submitted to the Hazardous Materials Division. In San Diego County, if a business meets the hazardous materials requirement for hazardous materials reporting per the Health and Safety Code Chapter 6.95, then the San Diego requires a business to also report carcinogens and reproductive toxins on an annual basis. This list must be resubmitted with changes or certified that there are no changes on an annual basis.
The annual carcinogen and reproductive toxin list can be uploaded into SIRS by clicking on the locally required documentation link in the hazardous materials inventory element.
Here's a picture of the blank form made available by the Hazardous Materials Division to businesses to use in order to do their annual carcinogen and reproductive toxin reporting. The form is available on the Hazardous Material Division's website. This is an example on how to fill out the carcinogen and reproductive toxin list before you submit it to the Hazardous Materials Division. Basically, for any chemical that was used in the previous year, you would put an X under the relevant quantity that was used during that same year. Here is a list of common carcinogens and reproductive toxins that are found at biotech facilities.
For a current complete list of carcinogens and reproductive toxins, go to the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment and click on the Prop 65 list. Proposition 65 requires the governor to publish at least annually a list of chemicals known to the state to cause cancer or reproductive toxicity.
On to violation number 3. The site map is not sufficient or complete. This violation is specific to only the site map component of the business plan. It can be used whenever a site map does not meet county requirements, meaning that the format is incorrect, incorrect symbols are common, as is using a page layout that is different than the one provided in the business plan packet, or when the site map is inaccurate. It could not show reportable materials, or it could show them in incorrect locations. Both are reasons to cite this violation. Hazardous Materials Violation number 4. Copy of Hazardous Materials Business Plan not on site for inspector's review. Notwithstanding any other provision of this article, an administering agency may, with the written concurrence of the local fire chief, require a handler to submit only the inventory required by Subdivision A of Section 25504, a list of emergency contacts, a site plan, and a certification that the handler has prepared a complete business plan that meets the requirements of this article, in lieu of the submission of a business plan, and require the handler to maintain the complete business plan at the site where the inventory is stored. It's recommended that the facility business plan be kept in a well-known, easily accessible place so it can be used as a reference in the event of an emergency. Also, this prevents the business plan from not being located when inspectors come by to check it. Anytime you bring a new material that requires an MSDS on site, or if you change the quantity of hazardous material that is already on site, think about reporting requirements. Violation number 5, which is the hazardous materials inventory not being amended for a 100% increase of hazardous material on site, or the inventory is incomplete, is most commonly cited when an inspector notes a hazardous material on site that has not been and should have been added to the chemical inventory. This violation could also be cited if an inspector notes the quantity reported is off by more than 100% from the quantity observed during an inspection.
In order to be in compliance with the hazardous materials requirements, it is recommended that a business representative periodically tour the facility, reviewing the inventory and site map for accuracy. If changes are made to the plan, make the necessary updates in SIRS and submit the changed components electronically to the Hazardous Materials Division within 30 days. Annually submit the Hazardous Materials Business Plan in SIRS. Include your carcinogen list, ensure the certification portion of the owner-operator page is accurate and complete, and submit electronically in SIRS. Make sure that personnel are aware of the Hazardous Materials Business Plan and that it is accessible at all times. Keep in mind, all minor violations corrected during the inspections are not citable. However, if they are observed at the next inspection, they will be.
End of the hazardous materials section. Next is hazardous waste. Have fun!